Alrighty, love. Alrighty. Hi. I hope everyone's feeling fine. Feeling dandy. Feeling great. Feeling fantastic. This week, and the last week, we've had a theme of red. With Zoe's red algae. Let's follow Zoe's being interactive. And I asked some questions on Instagram, or a question, and I said, if you guys could combine any two animals, what animals would you combine? I got some pretty good answers. We got otter and pigeon, shark and worm, koalas and gorillas, elephant and shrimp, seahorse and seagull, sheep and kangaroo, which is a woolly jumper. Shout out to you, Annabelle. Crocodile and cassowary, tiger shark. That I think is a thing. That is a thing. People are talking. A cat and a lizard, or a cheetah and a seal, a sloth and a shark, a giraffe and a hippo. It's 1 AM. I have been editing photos of animals together for about several hours. I have given up. I have gotten to the point where I'm just editing tails and animals, and I'm trying my hardest. But I am technologically inept, and I don't know how to use Photoshop. So I'm trying my best. It's okay. Natalie wants to see a frog do the face washy otter thing. I didn't know what that was when I filmed it, but I just googled it and I'm losing my mind because it's really, really cute and I don't know how to edit that. And I wish that I did, but I don't. So I'm gonna put in a clip. It's and Eliza would mix an owl and a puppy, but only the personalities, so she wants an affectionate owl. We have also some classic literature examples of animals that have been mixed together. We have the centaur, we have mermaids, Pegasus, the griffin, the list goes on. But today, we're going to be talking about my dream combination of animals, and that is frogfish. Now, one of the most phenomenal animals that I have witnessed in my entire 17 years of living. I have no words to describe its incredible energy. So here's a clip. I can't get over it. Now, you may be wondering, is it a frog or is it a fish? And this phenomenal creature is in fact a fish. But you may be wondering, how is it a fish? Now, the definition of a fish is a limbless, cold-blooded vertebrate animal with gills and fins living wholly in water. And also apparently a person who is strange in a specific way. So, now, the things that look like legs on the frogfish that make it look like a frog and they're actually fins, but he do be moving like he got somewhere to be. So, they rarely swim because they prefer to lie motionless on the seafloor to wait for prey to approach, and once they spot the prey, that is when they get busy. There are two styles of walking. One style, the first, the most incredible thing I've ever seen is, the walking. And the second is even better. Frogfish can gallop. Technically a slow gallop, but I can already feel the horse girls twitching their tails. So they live about 20 to 100 meters deep in almost all tropical and subtropical oceans and seas, with the primary exception being the Mediterranean Sea. And they prefer to live in water about 20 degrees or more. They're not exclusively red, but that is, in my opinion, the nicest color of frogfish. And they come in a wide range of colors, dark and light. And the lighter ones tend to be like yellow to yellow brown, but the darker ones can be green, black, or dark red. And despite this though, they can actually change color. When they move to a new environment, it can take, you know, days to weeks to change color, but they eventually change color as a form of camouflage. And because of this, that's what makes it so difficult to differentiate between species. And their changing color and their certain patterns help them mimic or resemble coral or rockfish, which is obviously what makes them camouflage so well. So from what I could gather, there are 49 confirmed species of frogfish. We have Glout's frogfish, brackish water frogfish, giant frogfish, hispid frogfish, Indian frogfish, water frogfish, longo frogfish, leopard frogfish, raw frogfish, anti frogfish, worms frogfish, striped frogfish, tail fish, hink, shy fish, me fish, frogfish, frogfish. So I hope you get all that. I never want to say the word frogfish again. You might think that the frogfish looks somewhat familiar. It's probably not, because it looks like the girl that pushed you off the swings in year 3. They are infamous for having the quickest bite of all vertebrates, and they're ambush predators. They bite faster than we can blink, and they bite in about 6 milliseconds, where it takes us about 200 milliseconds to blink. And it's like so fast that the other animals don't see it happen, and they do get finessed. They don't even know that the animals around them have been eaten because it's so quick. Basically, even in slow motion, it's really difficult to make out what's going on, because like even in 5 times slow motion, it still seems like an instant snap. And when a frogfish bites, it expands its mouth up to 12 times its original size, and this creates a vacuum. So it basically rapidly swallows the water that's, you know, within range of its mouth, and by extension any animal that's near it. They can eat animals up to twice their size, and to account for this, they can also expand their stomach. And they mostly eat small fish, but they also eat shrimps and crabs, and they don't have teeth. So basically they swallow the prey whole and allow the digestive juices to take the wheel. Frogfish are kind of anglerfish. They do have that the thing on their head that is like a lure, the thing that sticks out to act as bait for the prey, and basically it's a piece of dorsal spine that sticks out, and it can look like a worm or another like sort of creature, but it can also act as a chemical lure. So this basically means that it looks and smells like, let's say, a worm to other small fish. And in terms of camouflage, well, a lot of animals use camouflage as a means from hiding from predators. The frogfish uses its camouflage to trick prey into thinking it's a place of safety, like, you know, coral or rock or sponge or something like that. They're often covered with spots, stripes, warts, skin flaps, filaments, things like that. And scientists used to identify frogfish by their color, but then it was eventually discovered that obviously frogfish, even within a species, can be different colors, so that makes it really difficult to identify them. Some species don't even change color at all, so really cool. And I did try very hard to figure out what the actual like mechanics are of the color changing in the frogfish, but the only animals I could find were things like the octopus that does it in, you know, the blink of an eye, and the chameleon that does it in seconds or minutes. And it wasn't really the same kind of thing because it was different mechanics for each animal, so not very helpful. The camouflage is basically so good that even sea slugs have been known to crawl over them because they think they're a nice little rock. Most species of frogfish are pretty solitary because of the fact that they are ambush predators, and they're also free spawning. So basically the female like swims up to the surface and lays the eggs in like a sheet or like a raft, or I don't know what it's called, and then the male swims up and fertilizes it. The females, it's hard to determine the gender of frogfish as far as I'm aware, but in terms of like breeding partners, there's always one that's bigger than the other, and in terms where the sex has been determined, the female has always been the bigger one. So it's pretty safe to say that female frogfish are bigger than male frogfish, and because of that, all the male frogfish can kind of do during that breeding period is just follow his lady around. Basically the mating ritual is the male swims up behind the female and nudges her with his mouth and remains near her cloaca. The female, like I said, swims towards the water just before spawning, and they can spawn up to 180,000 eggs at a time, so a lot. After breeding, they get lost and they part their way they go their separate ways, because otherwise the smaller male would be eaten very, very quickly. So yeah, apart from this, like I said, frogfish are pretty solitary creatures. In terms of physical appearance, like I said, they can change color. They have this amphibian appearance, obviously, frogfish. They come in a lot of different sizes, from about 2.5 centimeters to about 38 centimeters. And their bodies have been described as plump. Their mouths point upward, which is really helpful, obviously, being ambush predators and living on the seafloor. Their lure can be helpful in differentiating different species. So obviously, because it's really difficult to differentiate species because of the color, the way that the lure looks can be really useful in this, and that's what helps scientists discover and differentiate. It can also be regenerated if it's lost, and the pectoral fins, so the rear fins, have the small round gill openings behind them. And they use a gas bladder to control their buoyancy. They use these small round gill openings to do what's called jet propulsion, where they basically, usually younger frogfish, rhythmically gulp water in large quantities and expel it out through their gill openings. And they move it forward, so they fart themselves where they want to go. And then when they're threatened, they can also inflate their size in a similar way to how they expand their mouth to appear bigger and more intimidating. In terms of threats to them, they do generally thrive in coral, and with global warming, coral bleaching is a very big problem. So coral bleaching is when the temperature of the water rises to above a point where the algae that live on coral can survive. The algae that live on coral and the coral itself have what's known as a mutualistic relationship, so they both benefit from each other. And when the algae dies, then the coral also dies, because the algae is a source of nutrition for the coral. And then that leads to dying coral and less habitat for certain marine life, such as frogfish. This has a domino effect, and the biodiversity in various areas is really affected. But frogfish are really abundant in the Indian Ocean if you want to sort of check them out, I guess. Not that anyone can go hot traveling right now, but and also I think you can get them as pets, but I don't know like what the different laws are in different places, or like what the requirements are, or really how to look after a frogfish. So yeah, frogfish have changed my life. That is everything. I hope that, I don't know, I hope that you just, I hope that's changed you. I hope you have learnt more. I hope your eyes have been opened. I hope you appreciate frogfish a little more. You know, they're our unsung heroes. So yes, we will see you next week, and nurture nature.